Welcome, 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 and return back to Season 6 of Smite. We're so happy to have you all back here. Couldn't be a moment too soon as we move into the action. We're starting with the Console League. My name is Finch. I'm joined here by Ryan Agro Bailey, and I'm happy to have you here with me.
Hey, glad to be here. I mean, it's been far too long for a competitive Smite drought. It's into March now. I've been waiting for too long. I'm super excited that we're getting this started, especially with the Console League, because this is a league that usually is very innovative, and then we get to see new things, and what better time to see new things than the beginning of a competitive season.
And that's right, and like you just saw, the console scene has been expanding last season.
Yeah.
It was PS4. You just saw just now that it's on Switch as well, so make sure you hop in and enjoy some Smite there. And this PS4 scene, which is where we're going to be going first, even though it is kind of new, I think we saw some promise from them in fall. I'm excited to see what they're bringing. Like you said, sometimes console can play things a little bit differently.
Definitely. I mean, you look at what In Control did at the World Championships. It wasn't, the best showing ever against what was eventually going to be the World Champions in Astral Authority. But you're right. The PlayStation 4 League, for how young it was during the fall split last year, for them to have all these months of practice to try and get their rosters in order, understand what the meta is going to be like. They got their first taste of cross-play up against Xbox, the World Championship. We'll see how those ripples kind of affect the rest of the PlayStation 4 League. I expect them to be very competitive this year up against Xbox.
I agree with you, and it's a good thing they got that practice, because that practice then is slowly growing into the norm for them. So that's the kind of thing they have to expect, is that they'll be going up against better and better competition. Let's go ahead and take a look, though, at what matches we can expect to look at throughout the day. We're going to be starting things off with Bedtime's Calling versus Goblin Gang, and then MV3 Esports versus VGS or VGS Gods. That's going to be offline. Hope they are good at VGS. That stuff's important, so certainly they'll want to make sure they're at the best of that. Then Xbox Europe will be right after.
And don't forget, we added that little VGS game in the menus not too long ago that you can the little quiz, so they've probably been practicing that quite a bit. I think Bedtime's Calling versus Goblin Gang is going to be pretty interesting. A big core of some of the core players from last year's PS4 League going up against each other.
That's right. It's essentially the core from that Freaks T1 squads you're going to see on Goblin Gang. So hopefully having that with Cynortas, Just Lion, mrsacx, that they can have some of that synergy they worked on from the fall of last year and bring that in. As you can see, we're going to have it broken up by region. So we're doing those European matches first on PS4, then Xbox, then switching over to North America, and again, PS4, then Xbox.
That's right. And of course, Hype Unit, the team that everyone is really excited about. I'm going to try and avoid using the obvious joke there. You should be excited to watch Hype Unit to close the day. That's all I'm going to say.
You absolutely should be. Essentially just Astral, I suppose, but
yeah.
with Bobby, who's been in and out, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a kind of rotating door for them in support. Sure. Inbound leaves, goes to the SPL for a little bit last year, now back on the console side with his brethren that are coming off a World Championship win. So we'll see if they can keep their momentum going.
That's not the only place that has my curiosity peaked, though. EU Xbox is huge, because that rival team that was dominant for the whole year is essentially blown up, right? They're all over the place now. So you kind of get to find out which piece of that team was the strongest, maybe in their individual places where they all ended up as well. So there's a lot to look forward to throughout the regions. But again, we're starting on PS4 over in Europe, where we get a chance to see if Goblin Gang can kind of keep some of that momentum. Freaks weren't the best team last year, but certainly I think having that core, having that practice together should help them out here.
Absolutely. In middle of the pack for a team that, was only together for the fall split, just as every team was in the PlayStation 4 League. Just getting that practice together is going to be a huge difference. Whereas you look across the way at Bedtime's Calling, and they've got a couple players who have been around the league before. SARPEII, Arya Cruz, those are junglers from last year, but the other three players not as part of the PS4 League last year. So I think that just being three people that have played in this league before, whereas you only have two people on the other side, could make a difference, as well as the fact that on Goblin Gang, if those three players played together before, which is a pretty big deal. They already have some modicum of synergy there.
And there is a little bit of a role swap, like you mentioned. They were both junglers on the side of Bedtime's Calling with SARPEII and Arya Cruz. So how well is Arya going to be able to make that swap up? There's some role swaps you can make where it's not too big a difference. I wonder if jungle support's like that, because you are both kind of roaming around the map a lot, kind of just going where you're needed. Maybe there's something to that, like having that map awareness, but we'll certainly see if Arya's up to the task.
I think so. I think jungle support is a pretty good role swap for junglers to make, because you do have to roam around the map a lot more. You have to get your farm in places that aren't as conventional as a typical lane, so sometimes it's a little bit harder to find that farm for non-jungler supports, and this way for Arya, I think that there could be some synergy there. It's really the laning phase that I'd be worried about. The mid to late game team fights as a support, maybe he's going to be a little bit more aggressive, but we see some supports really do that pretty well. Aurora doesn't peel that often for the back line. You'll usually see that it's him and Cyno or him and Divios going to the back line, and someone else is staying back to peel. So that sort of style can work, but the carries need to be very aware of where that support's going to be and how much help they'll ultimately have. So those are the two things I'd be looking for: is how does the laning phase go, and where is Arya in these team fights? Are they back in the back line supporting, or are they trying to dive with their jungler?
And that's going to be the question, right? How well are those players who have experience going to be able to play even with some of the shifts? And then how well are some of these players who maybe don't have quite as much experience going to be able to step up? Like we said, with Kinder Warrior and FataliTyxFire, there, those two ones that it looks like weren't in a part of PS4 Fall, or if they were name changes. How well are they going to be able to follow up with the rest of the squad that does have some of that experience? And if there is a gap there, how well can that core kind of carry for them, then try and make up for that difference? I imagine that'll be some of the big differences we'll see between these two teams.
Exactly, but just because these players have played together in the past doesn't mean that they've got an overwhelming advantage by any means, because this is a whole new season, 6-3 already, so we're pretty far into the Season 6 patches. There have been a lot of changes so far. How have these players really changed the way that they were playing last year? Are they putting more pressure in the solo lane to try and get some control of Totem of Ku? Or are they paying any attention to Totem of Ku? Or are they really still trying to force it down the duo lane and invade reds and invade purples? How are these teams going to be able to respond when teams try and do these different things to them is what I'm looking forward to.
And like you said, I think the gap between these levels of competition is getting smaller and smaller, right? We see Xbox players moving in and out of SPL, SML level at all this time. So I think less and less are we going to be looking at these games and thinking that they're that different from what we're going to see at some of the top levels too. I mean, I expect some high-level competition from them, and we're going to be getting that started for you here in just a moment. The picks and bans should be ready. Our very first ones here of Season 6.
I'm excited for the graphics package because it's been different. Okay, I can dig this. We got our lights behind us that are the right color.
In a cool spot, apparently.
Is blue your favorite color, by the way?
No, I like it, though, but it's not my favorite color.
Green's my favorite color, so I'm excited about being on the Goblin Gang side.
Well, also make sure that you vote for us in the polls as well. Who do you think's going to win? Get into Mixer Chat and make sure that you get your opinions in there, because we all make sure we follow along with it a lot, right, Ryan? I mean, that's something that we do all the time.
What's up?
Yeah.
No, I was listening to you. I just didn't really want to answer that, to be honest with you. I wanted to talk more about an Uller ban, which is something that I really wasn't expecting. This must be a respect ban over for FataliTyxFire or Cynortas in the mid lane, because Uller is a god that I think is okay right now, because dual lane pressure is really important. He obviously fights super well, but I don't know. That's not something that I was really expecting to see. Hera ban on the other side is something that I definitely was expecting to see.
Surprise.
I think Hera's very, very strong right now. And Hun Batz really was a comfort pick for so many players in the PS4 League last year. I think that this is something that you'll probably see a lot of this year, is just that Hun Batz is a comfort pick. And in PS4 it might look a little bit weird, but I think it's a totally worthwhile ban if that's what most junglers are comfortable with.
Well, Bedtime's calling, going to grab the Vamana right away, and then the Bacchus coming in for Goblin Gang. And I love that these are the first two picks, because I think if you haven't really been following since Season 5, these are super weird to you.
Right.
But if you played any Smite at home, you 100% understand why this is happening.
Oh, yeah.
Vamana's gotten a lot of love. He feels so oppressive right now. He does so much damage, and he feels nigh unpeelable. And then Bacchus, just with that chug change, I mean, he's everywhere now, right? In level 1, it feels so difficult to stop.
Well, tell me this. Is it good at level 1
to
have
I'll think about
14% damage mitigation? Is that good?
Yes, that's good. Okay.
Okay, what about 30 magical power?
30 magical. Oh, yes, that's good. Yes.
Okay, and that's before, no items necessary.
That seems good. Yes,
what about having a stun?
That's really good. Yeah.
Okay. I think Bacchus is pretty good at laning now. Yeah. Having all those stats available to you at level 1 is bonkers.
It's helped him out quite a bit, and that's why you see Goblin Gang prioritizing him so high. They have the Artio and the Jaji paired right up along that. So this could be interesting. It's a lot of control that I feel like has been prioritized early for Goblin Gang. The Jaji, the Artio, this Bacchus. This is going to be difficult to deal with. But on the other side for Bedtime Calling, they have some characters who don't care so much about it. Vamana can kind of shrug off CC a lot of the times. And then you have someone like the Ares who can go to that no escape and try and punish.
It's also kind of an awkward matchup for Daji and Xbalanque, because you're forced to have to pull him first and immediately, because if you chain him and then try and chain Ares or Vamana or someone else, and Xbalanque gets to Rising Jaguar, as soon as he hits that CC immunity point, he's cleansed of that chain and can't be rechained. So you have to, I mean, it can be a really good matchup for Daji. You just have to really focus out that Xbalanque. And the Ares pick is interesting. There's not a lot of control on Bedtime, and that is concerning to me. But on the other side, very few CC immune ultimates so far. It was only the Daji, and Bacchus and Artio can really get hurt by that cripple off the chain. So I don't mind the Ares pick, and I think that this Isis pick is exactly what Bedtime really needed, is some control. And Isis is a ton of control. And by the way, another god that got a lot of changes that extra distance on Dispel Magic to get that silence off more consistently is huge.
It is strong, and Isis is one of those gods I think often does very, very well, but maybe doesn't get that same kind of love in terms of how people view her in the community. Isis is a strong god. She's, like you said, a ton of control, plenty of damage too, can feel very good early on, but now King Arthur coming through, another one of our new ones that you can expect. We saw the Hera ban, and now King Arthur is going to be picked into this game. He does a lot for this team in terms of damage. He can bring some control in some spots, but I'm looking at this guy to stick around in fights and be hard to peel off.
I just don't know about picking him into the Artio. You're basically shutting down both of your both stances, your third ability. That's a lot to have to lose with that persistent cripple, but I love the Cernunnos pick. The Scylla pick is a little bit concerning to me, but there is a lot of setup, so we can see if Cynortas is going to be able to make it work. I love Bedtime's draft on its own. I'm just a little bit concerned about the lack of CC, and I'm concerned about that King Arthur matchup in lane against Artio.
And then you've got a big scare factor with Scylla when she makes it that late game.
That's
We're ready for game number 1, though. Let's get it over to the casters and into the action for the first game here, the SCL.
Thanks a lot there, John. Thanks a lot there, Aggro, Tom, and Taco on the call today. And, of course, Doug rocking the in-game camera. And for today's game, we're going to have Bedtime Calling versus Goblin Gang. And this is how we want to start it off, Taco. We've got some new characters. We've got, obviously, King Arthur on the battlefield. You heard Aggro talk about some of the issues that we might run into. But at the end of the day, I mean, I want to see it.
Might just be the start of the day, though. Key to keep in mind, this is the first things first on Monday morning, and Bedtime's Calling versus Goblin Gang. That's a bold pick, I think, from oCxnnahh off of that King Arthur into the Artio.
I agree. A lot of what King Arthur wants to do is going to be shut down by Artio's ability to kind of stay in there as well. So we'll keep an eye on the far side, but for now, it's the duo lane. Cernunnos, Bacchus, two very strong characters at the moment. Cernunnos is probably going to abuse Runeforged Hammer. Bacchus is going to abuse being Bacchus. And then across the way, Xbalanque and Ares. Very late game hunter in the Xbalanque.
mrsacx, though, already ensuring that Goblin Gang is going to be able to establish pressure right off the bat there in the duo lane. That burp actually shutting down the Ares change. Arya Cruz wanted to go for a little bit of poke there to help with the lane clear also, but those chains just unable to keep at it when you're getting stunned out from the burp.
And right here we see one of the more classic situations when it comes down to Smite analysis. Isis is mad early game. She always has been. Now, it's interesting, with some of the changes to the game, other characters have sort of caught up to her early game, but Scylla, not one of them! SARPEII from the right-hand side picks up the kill off the assist from Isis. That'll result in the red buff invade. First blood to BTC.
And this is part of the danger of taking Scylla into such an early game mid-jungle composition like what we've witnessed there from Bedtime's Calling. The Vamana just eating that tower shot so freely, understanding that even if he does take a little bit of poke damage in return, it's not going to be enough for Kinder Warrior on that Daji to pick him up.
Left side, answer back from Goblin Gang. mrsacx comes through, and the big damage from Bacchus. No surprise there. No surprise that Isis gets the early game too. You know, I was looking at that Isis and I was saying if she doesn't get off to an early start, it might be an issue. Well, no issue there. Isis certainly leading in the mid lane, but as I said, the answer back in duo quite important.
Might have been a little bit more problematic, though, for this Scylla had the first blood actually gone the way of OIIy, but because SARPEII was the one who actually ended up cleaning it up, I think that that's going to at least allow Cynortas to be behind a little bit in experience, but not drastically behind in itemization.
And at the same time, I mean, a Vamana with a lead is pretty much not something I want to deal with, so damned if you do, damned if you don't. Somebody got first blood, and it ain't looking good.
It was a great response, though, from Goblin Gang that their dual lane managed to establish pressure, because that's going to relieve a little bit off of that mid lane focus, perhaps, on Cynortas, because it just tells SARPEII that, hey, maybe I've got to pay attention to this Bacchus Cernunnos instead of just running rampant at this Scylla.
And you kind of want to talk about, you know, who gets the kills or whatnot, with Bacchus picking it up instead of his carry. Well, I have no issue with that. I'll expand in just a moment. Invade on the right-hand side. 3 members in blue versus the 2. Kinder going to be cut down by the rotation from a mid lane. The silence is bad, but the stun is good. And OIIy gets the kill. 2-1, and the blue buff off of the back of the kill. Nice looks from Bedtime Calling, not just for the kills, Taco, but because of the way they try for the invades. But Fatality over the wall picks up the blue.
One Artio against the world, it seems. And that's all it takes, is just a little bit of a mistimed ability from the gang, and suddenly the enemy team is profiting off of that what once looked like a good invade opportunity for Bedtime Calling.
Don't forget, this is the inaugural game of the season. Thank you so much for joining us. But, you know, there's a little bit of, let's say, you know, I don't want to, maybe they're shaking the rust off a little bit, because that was absolutely the right play. But you got to hit your stuff.
It's the jitters.
Yeah.
The first game jitters, first game of the season. Both of these teams trying to start off with that heavy 2-0 debut. Nobody wants to start off the season with some L's in their pocket, and Bedtime's Calling is certainly making Goblin Gang work for it.
Yeah, I like the fact that, one, we're seeing the ISIS, and this is exactly what the ISIS needs to be doing, and that's why I'm actually happy to see this. Because if ISIS isn't leveraging her early game, she's not really doing much. King Arthur blows the ultimate, not really doing much.
But this is the solo lane brawl that you want to see. This Artio and King Arthur, I mean, both of them don't even seem to really be paying mind to either of these minion waves. They're kind of just dying from being in the wave, and these two just looking to poke each other out consistently.
That's the kind of game I want to see. I know we all sign up for different things when it comes to watching Smite. I want to see you fight. And listen, don't get me wrong. Smite last year was sick, but I'm over Guardian's Bless and sit on my tower and do nothing, so... Totem of Coup was interesting. I think that's kind of what brought out some of these more aggressive characters, where the totem itself, so it doesn't scale too well. You get 25 gold per player, and you're going to get 25 MP5 in addition to some movement speed every time you touch a tower. Now, the jungler loves that. In the solo lane and the other lanes, the first one's nice, the second one's nice, and it starts to peter off after that, but people still just seem to fight, and that's all I want.
That's all anybody wants right now. And speaking of which, OIIy looking for a fight as is against mrsacx, but doesn't know that Just Lion is right behind him. Cynortas wanted to wrap around the corner, but he's just so low on mana.
The avoidance of the ultimate coming out from Cernunnos. Meanwhile, SARPEII's here. Rotation from the dual lane out of BTC. Bacchus jumps to the right-hand side. Long-range Spirit Ball not good enough, and the ultimate's not going to find the kill. Wing Gust one short. Support will head back to base alongside the mid lane, and Bedtime Calling. Not a mistake that they made this rotation at this time. Missed ultimate from the Ares, but the red buff invade is successful. Ares gonna get pulled here, but help for the mid lane, and that be that.
Just peel and zoning on both sides, but mostly from Bedtime's Calling. They got exactly what they were looking for at the end of the day. They wanted that red buff, they got in, they got out, and they didn't lose anybody in the process. That's the most important part.
Crazy plays coming out here from this ISIS. I think it finally will be time to say goodbye. Nice ultimate from Cynortas. Right there, Bedtime Calling are making the plays at the right moment. And I was a little bit, it's interesting kind of watching this go down. 3 people jumping on an ISIS, they're not going to get anything out of that.
But they also just watched Bedtime's Calling blow literally everything for that red buff invade. So they knew if they just went to collapse on OIIy, he'd be all by his lonesome in the mid lane. Perfect execution, if you ask me, out of Goblin Gang.
Exactly. That is kind of something that you need to do. Also here in the new season, kill bounties are a little bit more important. You want to be killing these players that are higher than you. You're going to get some more bang for your buck. And with the ISIS being a higher level than the Scylla, that's absolutely the play that you want to make. Bedtime Calling, though, like I said, Goblin Gang, they have to make that play. They're not thrilled. They're just kind of clocking in and clocking out. BTC is the squad that are timing their plays around the buff spawns. And that's what you got to do.
It's the stuff after the stuff.
Exactly.
That's what they're really looking for. I know that's like a little generic breakdown, of course,
hey,
but
man,
it does make a difference when you're able to get not only a successful pick, but also the consistent buff invades. And honestly, with the meta that we have seen transpire so far, because this is a lot of similarities to Season 5, realistically speaking. Season 6 has not brought too much of a difference outside of perhaps the solo lane
I think that's
meta
the biggest
shift,
change,
but as far as dual lane is concerned, you don't want to be losing your buffs time and time again, because it's just so threatening as the game progresses. Soon enough, those red buff invades are going to start turning into pressure point picks around the Gold Fury.
We are seeing, and again, here's another red buff invade. Goblin Gang has not gotten this red buff since minute 1. Big knock up here in the left side jungle. Trouble for OIIy, deleted right away. Goblin Gang looking For the revenge, there's a kill across the way. oCxnnahh makes it 1-for-1. Pulls in. This could be the secondary kill for the blue team, but they've got to catch up. Instead, the other way. Cynortas picks up SARPEII. It's a 2-for-1 in Goblin Gang's favor. They're not done yet. Bacchus jumps in. Could it have been too much?
But Cynortas, he doesn't have any mana for the crush. The root was good, but the Sycam's enough to get him to back off. oCxnnahh and Sahota don't seem to feel very comfortable now after having just lost a couple of their teammates. And that, again, excellent punish out of Goblin Gang. They realized just how separated Bedtime's Calling really is surrounding that red buff. And knew all they really had to do was just pinpoint the pressure spots, and that's looking directly at the Isis first and foremost.
And this is also where the Isis, so Isis is her strongest at, minute 1 when everybody walks out of the base, and she's got no items, but nobody else does. And then in the mid game, this kind of like in-between phase, people catch up to her, and you're able to jump on top. You saw how Bacchus was able to knock her up because the Wind Gust wasn't available, and take her out nice and easy. It's going to happen.
And you have to also factor in the little bits of anti-heal that Bacchus already has in his kit as well. That's going to start taking its toll against this Isis. She's not going to be able to rely nearly as much on her ultimate for that self-sustain. She's going to have to be a little bit more careful with her positioning, because I do feel like OIIy has just kind of still been in this I'm at level 1 stage where I'm the clear dominator of this lane and of this map, but that's not the case anymore for this Isis.
Exactly. And it's interesting. On one hand, you have to play like that because you won't get an advantage if you don't play for the advantage. Bedtime Calling, looking for another play. Here's trouble. Daji goes up on the powwow. Meanwhile, left-hand side, you with the Hunters fighting amongst themselves. SARPEII trying to catch up. There's a Xbalanque ultimate, but it's Daji first on the right-hand side. Let's take care of business. SARPEII under the tower, likely to lose his life here. Can't dodge that one. Another 2-for-1. Goblin Gang was behind the 8-ball for 10 straight minutes, and then suddenly they start biting back.
I know that they say that just Lion is supposed to be the carry of this team, but right about now, it's starting to look more and more like mrsacx, because this Bacchus has just been an absolute nightmare for the Bedtime's Calling so far out of this duo lane. 3-0-3 as well. He's got 100% kill participation for the game so far.
And I started to talk about it a while ago, where Bacchus got the first kill for Goblin Gang. And a lot of time you look at this duo lane and you go, all right, well, you want your carry to get the farm and support getting it. It makes people complain about it at lower levels. But at the end of the day, not all supports do the same thing. And when you're looking at Bacchus, and honestly, Ares across the way, they need to do damage in order to do what they do, so they need that farm. And if Bacchus is going to go 3-0-3 after getting the first kill for my team, as a Cernunnos, I'm sitting there like, fine, I'm going to build my Rune Forge, holler at me in 3 items, and I'll do my job. But for now, Bacchus jump and intoxicate and get me assists, baby.
It just feels like a little bit more consistent setup as well from the sides of Goblin Gang in comparison to Bedtime's Calling. I think that oCxnnahh, you have to rely on the Ares to consistently land those chains to truly profit. Meanwhile, Bacchus, sure, if you miss the flop, yeah, it can suck a little bit, but Belch, much easier to spread in terms of AoE form and just getting the consistent stun. OIIy going to take a little bit of damage there, though, from that crush, and you would just forget that Cynortas is the first blood of this game.
Exactly. I mean, just really able to make some changes now, as you can see the difference between the teams shortening up. Before, it was about a 1,500 gold lead for Bedtime Calling. Just Lion is in an interesting spot. The Rune Forged is something brand new to this season. What you're looking at is Rune Forged Hammer. Well, let me rectify that. Rune Forged is not brand new. This has been around for a minute, but players are just now kind of picking up on it.
The buffs to it are brand new.
Oh, yeah.
And speaking of buffs, Goblin Gang finally collecting their own red buff. They've been waiting for that one for a while now, but I think Bedtime's Calling learned their lesson after the last one that they're trespassing now.
I like that word, actually. Bedtime Calling, previously not a care in the world. Using those long-range basics, I don't think there's enough damage here, but coming around the corner is SARPEII, level 11, and it's good enough, baby. Just Lion is going to be lying down as SARPEII pops the ultimate. Meanwhile, off-screen, the 1v1 coming out from King Arthur, taking care of the jungle. And now a Gold Fury going to be started up. mrsacx, the only one here from Goblin Gang, and Isis, one of the best objective secures of the gang. Will it beat the Scylla? And it looks like it will. The fight after the fact.
And mrsacx, he was trying to get right there in the middle of everybody. The sprint will be good enough for now to save his life, but the same cannot be said for that Gold Fury. Like you just called it, has gone in favor of Bedtime's Calling, and more importantly, I think we all could kind of tell what was going to happen next as soon as we saw Kinder Warrior die on the opposite side of the map. It was bad enough watching Just Lion get picked underneath his own T2 tower. Did not expect to see SARPEII diving him this early on, but I respect him for it all the more so. I mean, you're Vamana, you got the big baby form, you might as well use it.
Exactly. If you're going to be playing these, if you're going to be playing, so assassins are a little bit, if this is an assassin, a squishier character, that kill doesn't happen. If you're going to pick, you know, an off-label god, you've got to be able to use what they bring. And that tankiness, the ability to heal back up, certainly a good look for SARPEII. One thing I do want to point out here that I love from Bedtime Calling is how important this Isis pick is. So in a vacuum, you know, where Isis winds up on the, I don't like tier list, but how strong she is in comparison to everybody else, a little bit different. But against Bacchus, wonderful. Knock up immune in the Wing Gust and a silence to cut short the belch. Left side, SARPEII says, what up again? Just came back to lane, and Sahota lets him know. Now here comes Daji from around the block. Sahota's in trouble now. Got to watch out for the jump. There it is. The dash is good. On the follow-up, a slow, but it's not going to be enough. You taunt, you go down, but SARPEII answers back. Oh, man. What a fight on the left-hand side.
But Sahota knew what was coming next. It was no surprise whatsoever that Kinder Warrior is wrapping around the backside just like oCxnnah's trying to do to Cynortas right now. Ultimate not going to be able to connect there from oCxnnah. Could get trapped from the Sycam underneath the T1 tower, but will be able to escape for the moment.
Look at it. Look at this. SARPEII from the back line. Here comes Artio up front. Going to get two players pulled in. SARPEII does the dirty work on the back line. Big Baby is going to be popped, and there's trouble for Artio. Dash underneath the tower. Long-range Spirit Pull. Who's got the one shot? Who's got the one shot? It's not going to be found. Vamana in trouble, but it's going to be all good. Tier 1 tower falls down. King Arthur pushing forward, and mrsacx gonna take a big old nap. 10 kills in total for Bedtime Calling. Scratch that, make it 11 as a support picks up another one. Goblin Gang answers back, and oCxnnahh with the Totally Dance moves. Not chaining me up tonight. Tier 1 toasted, 11 in total. We're 15.5 in, and Bedtime Calling with a big separation.
There's a reason they say no juke is the best juke sometimes. oCxnnahh giving a little bit of the wiggles in the mid lane, but I personally was a much bigger fan of the 360 spin we just witnessed.
That was fun. That was definitely a lot of fun. These teams having some fun here on our first broadcast of the console side of things. Joining us for European PlayStation 4 at the moment. And these teams are bringing out a lot of fun. I'm enjoying watching this go down. And like I said, anytime I get to watch the Egyptian Goddess of Magic, I'm a big fan. She's got a lot of tools, and, well, she's using them.
I'm looking more so at SARPEII than what I am OIIy or oCxnnahh right now.
Oh, he's doing the work.
This has been 3 or 4 consistent team fight deaths that have occurred for Goblin Gang now, all because of this Vamana being so patient and just running at them when legit every single ability has already been expended. Cynortas just used that dash to get away safely into his T2 tower from the initial tower dive out of oCxnnah, so to expect a Vamana to then come after you a couple seconds later, that's just practically unheard of. But Goblin Gang just have to be a little bit more mindful about this warrior frontline that Bedtime's Calling is trying to run.
Yeah, the path thing was really interesting, and now we're going to see the shift in focus from Vamana. Early game, he's got the Assassin's Blessing going into the Hasten Katana and the booties, so he's just doing some damage. But now after that, he's building into the Height of the Urchin, so we're going to see a more of a hybrid build as the game gets later and later, and he stops being able to really dominate via damage. He's going to dominate by being just in your front line, in your back line, wherever Vamana wants to be.
And Just Lion has looked just like a punching bag this entire game. It has not been able to really like profit off of this Runeforge Hammer because he just had 0 boxing opportunities against Sahota. There's no such thing though as a true 1v1 when it comes to competitive play. You can't expect that there isn't going to be somebody else running at you if your opponent is looking to be a little bit more aggressive. And I think that that's something, this is an important learning game for just Lion, because we have seen a lot of moments where this Cernunnos has kind of baited himself into a poor position off of trying to box with Sahota, just not really expecting that he's going to be getting camped so heavily.
At the same time, you also got to internalize the character selection, right? Sahota's going to outbox you, just Lion. However, the turnaround comes in team fight time. Goblin Gang, I think, should be focusing on what they can do as a unit. You've got the Wild Hunt, you've got the Waterfall ultimate coming out from your mid lane Scylla. There are so many options to really abuse the team fight. And when it comes to bedtime calling, I mean, they've got a strong team fight as well, but Goblin Gang just has so many options as long as they isolate the ISIS. If you get oCxnnahh out of the picture, then Goblin Gang kind of have the advantage, even if it's a 4-on-4.
I don't even think that it's just oCxnnahh. I think it's just as a whole, Goblin Gang have not really had much of an opportunity to play all 5 members grouped up at the same exact time in comparison to Bedtime's Calling, where they have time and time again made sure to be together with whatever they decide to try and pressure out, which seems to be the second goal theory of the game for now.
Eyes on the prize. Stun missed by oCxnnahh. mrsacx still very healthy. Pull's going to be good, but where's the help from the team? There's the ISIS ultimate. Not going to be really all that much damage, though. mrsacx alive for now. Pulled up and put down. 3 kills without a death for King Arthur. Now surrounded, but trouble on the back line. Daji pulling one in. Cynortas putting Sahota down. The carry down. It's a 1-for-1 exchange. SARPEII rampaging on the back line. Takes care of Kinder.
Kinder just looked lost there for a moment. We'll get into that a little bit later on because Crew's still on the run for his life. This Artio looking to bring him back down to the grave.
Look
but the body blocks from oCxnnahh. The body blocks from oCxnnah are good enough. The chain is going to connect, and now this could be the turnaround that Cruz is waiting for.
Oh, too much. Arya got a little bit too excited. Artio will likely die. I'm not going to say definitely because anything's possible here, especially when she's healing. oCxnnah in trouble. oCxnnah uses the Aegis. SARPEII takes care of business. Patako, a little close.
But where was that when mrsacx was eating the entirety of Bedtime's Calling ultimates? They used everything on this Bacchus, and Goblin Gang just seemed perfectly content to let their Bacchus take a beating. As soon as you see that ISIS ultimate get dropped down, the Circle of Protection is only going to be around for so long, and you know that they're prioritizing it for damage, despite having feigned towards that Gold Fury attempt. So I just don't really understand why Goblin Gang was so hesitant to join the fight.
At the same time, I mean, Bacchus is definitely the best person equipped to deal with all that nonsense. He's going to come up with 14 protections just off of the chug, plus the passive, and then of course, or the passive, and then plus the chug, and then of course he's got OIIy Hunter's Fury. I mean, he's the one to take the shot.
But that's the thing. Then there needs to be turnaround. If you see him eating every single one of those cooldowns, Goblin Gang had opportunities to initiate or counter-initiate. They just chose not to act on them.
What's interesting is that I wonder, I would love to go back and watch that at some point, because Bedtime Calling here, they used all their team fight stuff, and then the team fight spread. And if that was BTC making that decision, going, all right, well, we dropped our ISIS ultimate, everybody's spread out, because Goblin Gang, I mentioned it before, this is a team fight composition. They want everybody grouped up. They've got their own pseudo-Ares and Kinder Warrior, right? They want to do the same thing that BTC does. Bedtime Calling drops the ISIS ult and then goes, everybody run, scatter, like we're running from people. And Goblin Gang aren't able to do what their comp is supposed to do.
I think that Goblin Gang are kind of just letting the lead VTC have built up get into their heads now, because that felt a lot like an oversight to me of what Goblin Gang's damage output truly is.
Fire Giant started here, and again, if you haven't watched Smite since last year, Fire Giant's more difficult. With an ISIS ult, everything seems easy. Up close is going to be Fatalities, now in trouble, down to 50%, excuse me. Met up by the King Arthur. Here comes help, long-range ball, not going to be good enough. Goblin Gang on the retreat. Good stun coming out from Artio. Chains! And it rains. Arthur, number 17. 22:15 on the clock. Bedtime Calling. 8K lead. Hold that thought, though, Taco. 1,500 for the Tier 2. It's a 10K lead.
the Kinder Warrior just hoping to try and collect his speed buff without any interruption right now. He's got to be careful, though, about these corners. SARPEII already spotted him out, but chooses to look for the regroup on his own team instead. All the while, JustLion, I think, did make a pretty big play here for Goblin Gang, collecting the T2 from the dual lane side of the map. Kind of just understood, as soon as the Fire Giant was claimed by Bedtime's Calling, it's best for him to not waste his time looking to rotate late as hell, because A, he's not going to get there, B, even if he does, he's just going to die like he has every single other moment that he showed up to a team fight in this game so far. So I think that getting the T2 tower was really the only option he had available to him. He also managed to clean out the jungle as well from VTC. I think that's super important as well. A little bit of farm for this Cernunnos can go a long way now.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot disagree. While we've got a moment, Bedtime Calling going to group up and likely look for a push on the left side. Talk about these carry builds. Very, very different worlds from two very, very different characters. Sahota, very traditional. This is exactly what you might be expecting if you played Smite for literally any amount of time. This is what you've been building since 2013, right? Power, boots, oCxnnahh, sure, no problem. I want to talk about what JustLion's doing across the way, though.
I think he kind of lost me after the Runeforge Hammer, to be completely honest. The Crusher and the Bloodforge, normally I wouldn't have an issue with this if he wasn't 0-6 already. I think the problem is JustLion was picked off, sometimes due to his own misguidance on positioning, but other times just from simply getting dove and legit just not having anywhere to go. SARPEII is Vamana. I mean, you kind of just die when he runs at you. And in this case, JustLion just died at least 3 or 4 times alone from this Vamana running at him in the duo lane, and it's just so expensive. That's where he loses me, because Runeforge and the Ninja Tablet, that's completely understandable. I feel you on that, but to go for the Crusher immediately after, when you've already been having some troubles with survivability, I feel like, if anything, he should have tried to place the Bloodforge there in the 3rd item slot, or even an Aussie, just some form of self-sustain that he could rely on to stay in that lane a little bit more easily. And on top of that, addressing the Bloodforge now, right after the Crusher, I mean, that's 2,800 gold, dude. Yeah. You're already hurting in the pocket. You don't need to be trying to go big baller status here.
It's also, for me, it's an ability-based hunter build, right? Hunters come in 2 varieties, attack speed or basic attack oriented, which is what Sahota's doing. And then JustLion is building for his abilities, which makes sense. But here's one of the things, is that abilities and ability-based hunters do well in the mid-game and the very early late game. You're really the star in the mid game. And frankly, JustLion missed that boat. He just wasn't relevant in the mid game, and now it's the late game, and he's got this almost dated build in the sense that this build would have been great 10 minutes ago.
Even an Executioner instead of the Crusher. Something that could cut through the physical protection so he can deal a little bit more damage as he's chilling in that winter stance. No pun intended, by the way.
Yeah, just the adaptation towards the late game. So we'll see how that works out. Bedtime Calling now. Fire Giant going to dissipate relatively soon, and they're going for the OIIy Fury, one of, again, the newer features that we see on the map. So there's 3 Gold Furies now. The old-fashioned Gold Fury that we know and love, the OIIy Fury, and the Primal Fury. Primal Fury is going to make the world a little bit easier to control as far as jungle camps is concerned. You're going to be able to take those down easily. And the OIIy Fury, well, that's going to boost up your minion waves. And essentially what happens is OIIy Fury gets killed, and the next minion wave that spawns is filled with these super powerful minions. You can see them here on the right-hand side. Now, if left alone, these minions will take a Phoenix. So as soon as the OIIy Fury goes down, the enemy team has to take care of business, because if they don't, the minions will just win.
They're pretty annoying.
They're very annoying.
Especially if you let them stack, and so... It looks like Bedtime's Calling wanting to take the initiative as well with that boosted fire wave. I thought that they were going to try to push up on that right-hand side a little bit more so, but it seems like they're more interested in the Fire Giant instead, and I can't blame them. With the way that objective calls have gone this entire game, that is probably the #1 thing that Bedtime's Calling has done right the whole way through. They have just pressured the objectives relentlessly, and I think that's what really caught Goblin Gang so off guard, because as far as team fights are concerned, I would honestly give the benefit to Goblin Gang's composition. I think that comp that they are currently running is an incredibly powerful team fighting composition that they just did not get a chance to utilize.
Exactly. I think that they've got a lot of work out here in the ultimate, specifically coming out from the Cernunnos. The Wild Hunt can drastically changed things. But ollie's ultimate was able to control the early game. And, I mean, you want to talk about the early game. The very first kill resulted in a buff invade, and we saw that for the next 7 or 8 minutes. So, bedtime calling. They know exactly what they need to be doing. And it's pressuring the right side. Arthur leading the way. olliey a little bit on the back line. Watch for Kinder to jump on somebody on the back line. SARPEII already cuts down to half HP. Just Lion's ultimate on cooldown now. And here comes the damage onto the Phoenix. Halfway down. Looks like Arthur going to avoid it. Circle of protection is good. Pulling somebody in and popping somebody down. olliey gets the kill on Fatality. mrsacx aggressed on by SARPEII. Nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. Sahota puts him underground. And the right-hand Phoenix will be toasted. SARPEII dances around the Scylla. Aegis is good for now. 3rd kill. Taco, this might be it.
I think that this is almost certainly going to be it, unless Bedtime's Calling decides to go for that mid-Phoenix instead. They are incredibly low. Just Lion is still sticking around here with Kinder Warrior. It's 2 damage dealers, though, and I'm just not sure that they're going to really be able to deal with SARPEII the whole way through. SARPEII just zoning out, and that's going to be a freebie for Bedtime's Calling. Just like that, they get the Phoenix one more time, but to be fair, I don't think there was really any other outcome here for Goblin Gang. Just Lion and Kinder Warrior, realistically, are they going to be able to stand up against 4 different members of Bedtime's Calling underneath the Phoenix? No.
Rough play there. Love what SARPEII did there. SARPEII goes, hey man, maybe I get 2 kills and we just win. Maybe I zone and we get the 2nd Phoenix. Either way is a positive. It doesn't matter if he gets a 3rd death with his 10, 3, and 7 slash line. He's been a part of 17 out of 20 kills for his squad. Absolutely the playmaker from the early days, from the early game, as you were saying.
Something I do want to note, though, on that right side Phoenix Siege, we saw a 3-man I'm a monster from Cynortas, and I thought that was going to completely 180 the team fight for a second until I realized that the rest of Goblin Gang just didn't have anything to follow up with because their carries were already getting shoved so far back from the Phoenix. But if they're able to find a Bacchus flop and an Intoxicate into that same I'm a monster, I think that we're looking at an entirely different world of possibilities here, but in that world, it still doesn't involve just Lion being alive.
Bacchus got in a little bit of trouble. It was a short-range flop that he tried to use, and then SARPEII just walked him down because that's what Vamana does. So he got in a little bit of trouble early. And the circle of protection was really huge. That is like my ideal circle of protection, by the way. Just like drop it in front of the Phoenix and say, what are you gonna do? I'm taking less damage. If you walk here, you die. And then, by the way, Ares is gonna force you over here. So I absolutely, that is one of my favorite things that ISIS does here that I think we didn't see enough of in the new era of sieging last year.
This isn't good though, Tom. With just Lion being dead, that Cernunnos is an important damage dealer underneath these Phoenix sieges, and they're just not gonna have him here. Sahota under pressure right now from Kinder Warrior, but Circle of Protection's already gonna bring down FataliTyxFire like so many times before. Big Ares ultimate, but not gonna grab anybody just yet.
Look at olliey, eyes in the back of his head, 1 shot, 2 shots of whatever, and half a dozen in BTC's kill column. Right side, mid side, already down. Left side, Phoenix gonna be focused on. There's the late ultimate from Cernunnos. They're walking past the Phoenix. They're looking for the players. Bacchus and his teammate in the fountain. 50%. There's the Oni Fury minions. There's the Fire minions. There's the game. Bedtime calling. Just over a half hour. Take the game.
There's just way too many Fire minions into the base at that point in time. It was pressure from the right side Phoenix having already been sieged, mid Phoenix had already been sieged, and that Fire Giant, because they sieged those 2 Phoenixes so early on, they still had FG for way too long. It just didn't really seem like the odds were going to really pan into the favor of Goblin Gang there at the end.
You said it before, Bedtime's calling. We're looking for the objectives every minute of the way. That's what got them the game. Let's break it down. Pitch and ride.
Nice job, Tom and Taco. Game 1, the first game of Season 6 now in the books, and it's a bit of a rough one, I would say, for Goblin Gang. Not the way that you would have expected that one to go. And I want to say that it was Vamana. If there was something else you saw, I'd like to hear it. But SARPEII had a lot to do with it.
No, yeah, I think you nailed it. Yeah, Vamana, I mean, look, when you're first picking the Vamana, you expect it to do pretty well.
Right.
I don't know that you expected it to do that well necessarily. 11-3 for SARPEII. He was all over the map as well. I mean, he was in mid, gets the early first blood on the Cynortas, though that was really olliey that did a lot of that work.
Yes.
Cynortas, by the way, tries to box an Isis at level 2. Isis has a lot better abilities at level 2 than Scylla does, so it's probably not your best option. Yeah, Scylla not your best level 2 boxer, so Cynortas makes a big mistake, pays for it in a big way, and from that point on, Bedtime Calling just got so many things on that left side of the map. They got red buffs, they got purple buffs. They were killing Just Lion over and over and over again. In this build for Just Lion, it's all the rage, right? This Runeforged Hammer, this Crusher. It can be really, really good when you're ahead. It gives you a ton of power, but it makes you lack on pen really heavily. And in situations like this where you fall behind, eventually, normally, you're the hunter and you'll be able to kill the Vamana eventually when he's stomping on you. In this situation, that wasn't a possibility because he had so little pen and was so far behind. This power doesn't matter on a Vamana who's gaining that much health per second. It just wasn't the right build path for Just Lion in this game.
Yeah, SARPEII really caused a lot of problems for them. But I know that you were highlighting that you didn't like what's happening with Just Lion, but it was both the carries for me that I felt like didn't do quite enough for Goblin Gang. Like you mentioned, Cynortas with that early start, he ended up so far behind Ollie early on, he was never as relevant as this Isis was. In fact, to Just Lion, they got their first kill in the duo lane, in part because of this Bacchus and mrsacx play, and they weren't able to capitalize on that. Part of it is that SARPEII did a good job punishing him and ganking twice over in that duo side, but also that Just Lion was out of position a lot. I think they need their carries to be a little bit more mindful early on in this next game, but they want to try and clean up what happened here in this game.
I agree with you. And at the same time, we've done all this without talking about Kana at all in that solo lane with this King Arthur that was just dominant all game long. The laning phase didn't work out too well, but at the same time, I just don't understand why Kinder Warrior didn't come over there and gank this Arthur, who's got no way to escape whenever he's crippled. That should be an easy kill in the solo lane, and I think that is where you're right. I mean, the carries didn't do enough there for Goblin Gang. The left side of the map started to struggle, especially when SARPEII started showing up. What's the best way to counteract that? It's not Kinder Warrior going in and dying to SARPEII as well, as we saw earlier. Instead, why not just go over to the solo lane, pick up kills there, start invading blues? You know, there was a lot of coup control by Kana in particular. It wasn't really going over to the Artio. So I think that there is some things that Goblin Gang could have done outside of just playing better. I mean, yes, that's obviously the goal, but I think that there are things that even with the way that their carries were playing, with the way that the map was kind of breaking down, they could have done to stem the bleeding a little bit and maybe set up Artio for a little bit more success later on.